Hi everyone, welcome back to another lightsaber video. Um, I have talked about this hilt before in a previous video, but I have been working on it for a few months now, just trying to perfect it and weather it more so it looks as accurate as possible. Since the last time I made a video, new reference pictures have surfaced, and there are other users on the Facebook groups like Nate from Iron Destiny Props, who recently did a gorgeous commission for someone else on this hilt, and it looked absolutely amazing, and it just inspired me to pick up this hilt once more and just to try to perfect it a little bit more. This, of course, is the Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber hilt from Star Wars A New Hope. The base unit is a Roman Props MK1. This is a FX version, but it is empty, it is uninstalled, and I intend to keep it that way. This is just a display piece. Now, the Obi-Wan lightsaber from A New Hope, sadly there aren't really very good stills from the movie, unlike Return of the Jedi or the Graflex. You just can't really find very good quality pictures of this hilt. Most of the time it's hidden under his robe. He takes it out briefly, and then even with the duel scene against Darth Vader, I mean, it's a he's using a different, it's a motorized stunt hilt. It's not the actual hero prop, which is on his belt most of the time. So there aren't many good pictures to go by, but there was a book called the Chronicles book, which had a couple of shots of this lightsaber in black and white, sadly, but still it is the reference picture that most people use when they're trying to get this saber to have an accurate look. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I did to try and achieve this look, because obviously when you purchase this from Roman Props, it looks fantastic, but it doesn't look like that. It looks a bit too clean. There was someone who recently asked me as well on YouTube to make more videos about weathering and explain how I go about my weathering. Well, I'm no expert at all, but I'm very happy to share my limited experience and hopefully pass on what I can to help you along the way if you choose to do a project like this. Right, where do we start? So first thing first is the grenade. Now the grenade section, when it's brand new from Roman Props, it has a sort of a gunmetal blackish look, and it's weathered, but you don't see these things in between the grooves. It's clean. And what I did to rust this, because this is natural, real rust, it's not paint. I did try paint in a previous attempt, and it just looked fake, and I did not like it. If you are a better painter than I am, by all means go for it. You know, I know a lot of people who choose to do rust with a variety of paints, and power to you if you could do that. I know even Nate from Iron Destiny Props, I think he paints everything by hand, and it looks fantastic. But I'm not very skilled at paint, so I chose to go just the natural method. What I do is I unthread all of this, keep the grenade on its own, and then just put a little bit of blue tack around the threading to seal it, and just to protect the threading from rust, because what you don't want is to have so much corrosion and rust built in between the threads that you have trouble putting the lightsaber back together. So just a little bit of blue tack around, just to protect the areas on the inside of the grenade. And then you just put it in a little Ziploc baggie with water and salt, lots of salt. Don't seal the bag, just any other container. It doesn't have to be a Ziploc, obviously, just a container with salt and water, and just leave it outside. If you have a balcony or a garden, Just leave it outside, let the air do its thing, let the oxygen kind of react with the water and the salt molecules to form up that rust. It won't take very long, just a few days, depending on the weather conditions where you live. You know, it could take anything from 2 to 5 or 7 days. There will be substantial amount of rust all over it. Don't worry about that. We'll get to that in a second. Don't panic if at the end the whole thing is rusty. You can easily remove rust. And what I did was to remove the excess rust, because it was sort of too orange. I used a Dremel. A Dremel has a little attachment that looks like a kind of a round brush, like a bristle brush. I don't know the exact name of the attachment, but if any of you has a Dremel, I think you'll probably know what I'm talking about. If not, feel free to message me. Another way to go if you don't have a Dremel is just a little bit of steel wool or wire wool or something like that, just to try to buff it and take down some of the rust, the excess rust in between the grooves, and try to leave that stuff that's deep in there, because that looks good. And then once that's done, I used a chemical called Perma Blue, which you could find on eBay. And basically what that does is it restores some of the darkening of the original metal. And you just literally just soak a little bit, like that much, just on a cotton pad or something, and you just wipe it around. You just leave it then for 10 to 20 minutes and it will re-darken back up and it'll look great. So yeah, Perma Blue is the name of the, it's like a gunmetal polishing compound. So that was probably one of the longest steps, was getting the grenade right. The rest of it, so over here, we'll start at the top. Emitter, again, that was quite weathered by Roman. It looked really nice, but I buffed it. I buffed out the black band of weathering that he had there. I buffed all that out. And I just added a little bit of dry brush paint here and there. I don't know if you can see it. It's quite subtle, but that's by design. I wanted it to look just a little dirty and grimy. You don't want the paint to be too obvious, so just dry brush it. Make sure there's not too much. If there's any excess, try to remove it. And yeah, just a little bit of brown and black paint in various random spots. Same again on the top of the emitter, just to make it look like it would, you know, if Obi-Wan's been living on Tatooine under those conditions for years and years. He's not going to have a shiny, brand new looking weapon, is he? I think this looks better. The blade plug, I just sanded that down a little bit with some Scotch-Brite and then soaked it in aluminium black, and then just buffed it to remove the excess again. The copper, oh sorry, the neck, the wind vane, again sanded that down with some steel wool, just so it's not so black, because it was black to begin with. Sanded that down, and that revealed the copper underneath, or I don't know if it's copper, I think it's probably brass, excuse me, it's brass. And then I applied brass black, which is very much like aluminium black. It just binds better to brass metals, just to give it a sort of a darker yellowish appearance. So brass black on the wind vane and on the bottom portion of the thin neck here. Then these are accurate, these dents on the bottom of the emitter. These were done by Dremel. I just hand Dremeled certain spots just at random, some nicks and bumps, because these are definitely accurate to the Chronicles appearance. Just a little bit of damage there, a little bit of pommel, damage to the wind vane again as well. Just some dents here. I don't know if you can pick that up. It's just bent slightly over here, bent slightly over here. You could do those with like a pair of pliers or something. Just bend it in. It's nice, soft, pliable metal, so you shouldn't have any problems doing this mod, if you want to, of course. Alright, moving on down. I'm going to leave the clamp to the end because that's the part that took the longest to get right. The booster, I had done it the same way I'd done the grenade. So again, undid it, blue tack around the threading from here and from inside, soak it in salt water and set it outside for a couple of days, and it developed this beautiful rust, which is sort of uneven. In some parts it's set in heavier, and some in between some of the fins it's a lot lighter and more subtle, which just adds to the realism of it, I think. And yeah, very happy with that result. What else do we have? Nothing much on the pommel. You can buff this down if you're not a fan of the very heavy chrome shiny look. I did that a little bit, but I wanted it to be not completely sort of buffed down to dull, but also not quite bright and shiny like the Inception. There's a very distinct kind of cut over here, a diagonal scratch mark in between two of the pommel cubes, and you'll have to look at the reference material, but it should align roughly under the transistors and a little bit below. Mine doesn't quite line up, so there's the D-ring should be over there slightly, which is why I did this one, because ideally that D-ring would sit there. So it's just a tad loose for me. But yeah, it's two cubes down from the D-ring. That's it. So let's talk about the clamp. Oh, this one took a long time to get right. So first of all, there has to be two brass screws, one by the clamp card over here or by the lever, and one somewhere in the middle, just between the F and the L over here. And sort of finding the right size as well took a little time, and then I cut the screw right down and grinded it down as much as I can, and then just glued it in. I did open a little hole in the clamp, obviously, so it can sit in, and just glued it. It should be flush, it shouldn't sit up like that, but that was the best that I could do. There are two cotter pins over here, which is pointing that way, and one over here. I don't know what other people use, but I just used like a chain. I just opened up a little, almost like a little necklace, like a keychain, and just drilled a hole in there, and then just kind of bent it into shape and threaded it inside. You can see the other end of it there, so it kind of sits in nicely. That one's a little bit more wobbly, but that's okay. Now, all the damage that you see on the clamp is paint. So there's a little bit of foil tape, first of all. There's chrome tape that you kind of stick around here and just cut it into shape with like box cutters. So you just stick a little strip there and just work your way around the transistors there with a box cutter, and then just remove the excess. And you do the same from that side as well. That's chrome tape. And then I just kind of nicked and damaged it, scratched it up. And finally, I just dry brushed some brown and black paint in random spots to give it a bit of a dirty, rusty appearance. I also did this large area of rust. This is all paint in different shades of brown, black, because that's what I've seen that Nate has done on his. And finally, the lever itself and the clamp. There's a lot of rusting on the Chronicles picture, so I did the same with mine. I just did it with paint. Transistors, nothing much to say, but that is the correct orientation of the ME. Those ones go up, that one goes down. Just a little bit more paint around. I think that's basically it. So it was a long, arduous project between the painting, the rusting, the damage of the using the Dremel to do these dents, drilling holes into the clamp to put the screws in, cutting the screws to the right. It really did take quite a bit of time, and but I enjoyed it because I did it over a long period of time where I would just do a little bit and then set it aside to do something else for a little while and then kind of come back to it. But I think I'm at a stage now where I'm very, very happy with how it looks. Obviously, this is not to everyone's taste, and I completely respect and understand that. Is this a screen accurate appearance? Don't know. Probably not. It's probably a little bit too much. It's maybe more of a post-production look. It looks like what we see in the two Chronicles pictures, but if it's a little bit too extreme of a weathering, I do appreciate that. And if you just want to go with what you see on screen, then you certainly don't need to do most of this. I think just a little bit of rust maybe in the grenades, and none of this, none of the cotter pins or the brass screws. I don't think those were in filming. Yeah, just do a little bit of rust or paint, and probably just leave it at that. But anyway, this is for those who are curious or interested in the look that we see in the Chronicles pictures, and also in the old MR hilt. Looked very similar to this. It was a slightly cleaner version, but it had the screws and the cotter pins and all of that. So that is also accurate to this. Anyways, I hope you've all enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.